Okay, so I think we got most people here enough to get started. The chat is already popping off, so I think that we'll kick it off. Hi, everybody. Welcome to this month's community call. It's October, almost November. As Shelby said, and both of us are actually sick, so excuse the stuffy nose and the camera off. And Shelby will be moderating incognito today. But so just a reminder, you know how to request to speak. Shelby will still be on that, and if not, I'll be keeping an eye on it as well. And please post your written updates to radicle.community. So without further ado, let's kick it off. We can start with clients. So I know that Cloudhead isn't here today, so I'm not sure if, there we go. Eric, I will pass it off to you.
Hi everyone. Can you hear me? Is it working?
Yep.
Okay, great. Let me share my screen then. Okay. Let's see. Okay, does that work? Does it work?
Yep.
So you should see this little presentation that I created on HackMD, right? So it's should see the first slide. Yeah, let me give you a quick update on what the clients team was working on. So I think we had some kind of like in-between month. So I think there was not like a clear main focus that we can point to, but we made like good progress on several parts of the stack. So I will start with the protocol. So there was a lot of work going on the Git side. So we improved the testing for Git storage, and we have property tests now. There was a Radicle Serve redesign that's going on, and we made some good progress there. So Radicle Serve is the code browsing library that we use in the stack. There was also an initiative to port collaborative objects to the new protocol. We also drafted out Radicle improvement proposal for the new storage. And for people who are interested in browsing through the code, I also put the link into the forums post. There was also actually a lot of work on the node. So we now started working on the new HTTP client. So that should work so you would have then Git commands without having the need to go through the Radicle command. It has a lot of technical stuff so we set like the head refs for canonical refs and added ping pong messages. And also implemented the new Git remote RAD helper. So this is also part of the old protocol, but there is like work that has been done to port this over to the new protocol. We also implemented an address book and routing table storage, and started adding custom Git transports. So for RAD and Hardwood. So Hardwood is the name of the new protocol. So there's also a link that we added to the forum post for people who are interested in looking through the code and the pull requests. So what else? So from the web interface side, we migrated from Rinkeby to Girly. We also moved the interface, the URL from app.radicle.network to app.radiclexyz. So because I think there was some confusion with all the URLs that we had. And there was also a major refactoring and removed like deprecated functionality. So from the CLI side, we were a little bit slow this month, but we also moved the gateway to app.radiclexyz. So if you all the URLs that are being printed by the CLI should also now point to the new URLs that the web interface is using. We added some minor improvements to the identity UX that has in mind the new protocol, which is centered around peer IDs. We also iterated again on the TUI library design and its implementation. So we just wanted to get things right, because this is supposed to be the foundation for all the TUI applications as part of the CLI. And since there was some confusion about the two different installation instructions that we had. So we had the installation instructions for the CLI in the GitHub repository, but also in the Getting Started guide. And they always tend to like drift apart. So we designed some kind of simple mechanism to keep this in line in the future. And what we will continue working on this month, so there will be still work around the implementation of the new protocol and getting together like all the building blocks, supporting over what we have already and putting in like new stuff that we need, new components. On the web, we want to make the interface more robust and more decentralized in terms of services. And on the CLI, we want to make some progress on first implementation of a TUI application, which is supposed to be an issues browser. And we also want to work on the unification of the installation instructions that I just mentioned. So that was kind of quick. Are there any questions?
I think we had Yorgos. Raise your hand. Can you speak? I just granted you.
I can. Eric, thanks very much for that. I was just wondering about the TUI. Is there some place we can find out? So this is the terminal UI, right? We have some similar functionality we want to be building on the IDE plugin. Is there a place we can, see how you're thinking of putting the UX together for the issues and the rest of the collaborative objects?
I think there's no place that we documented this, but I don't know, maybe you have like a suggestion where we can put together like all the ideas that are flowing around so that we can start working on this together. I mean, I think the main idea of like the concept should be that like the TUI is just like a light client that is like kind of the same as it would be like an IDE plugin. And then we have like the core Radicle command that maybe like then connects or like speaks to the TUI with like some kind of message passing system. And maybe like in the future, this would then also be the way how IDE plugins would communicate with the Radicle command. I don't know, does that make sense? Maybe, I hope I got your question right.
Yeah, that's fine. Thanks. We'll chat more.
Yeah, cool. We have another hand raised. Aphilas, can you speak? I think I hit the button. I'm not sure if you can unmute though. Oh, I think you're speaking, but we can't hear you. Nope. Yeah, don't know. Maybe it's a headphone thing. No, still no. Yeah, I think that he's unmuted, but I think it's maybe something on the audio side. Because the unmute button is there. Okay, well, it seems like he'll rejoin. Any other questions in the meantime?
I mean, even please feel free to slide into the client's channel on Discord. So we're happy to answer any questions that are coming up in the future.
Cool.
They're back. Okay.
Yeah, so Phyllis, if you want to request to speak again, we can try one more time. And if not, so you're muted now. I can see if you want to try to unmute yourself. Cool. Still muted, so try to unmute yourself now. No, unfortunately, it's not working. I know. That's so weird. Well, how about I think we'll keep it moving along in essence of time, but maybe write your question in the chat, and I'm sure Eric can take a look at it while the other teams are updating. Sorry about that. Okay, cool. Thank you so much, clients team. Thanks, Eric. So we'll keep it moving to funding next. Who would like to step up to the plate?
Cool. Yeah, I think I'm going to present again for the funding team. So let's see. Looks like my connectivity was bad for a second, but looks like it's good now. Yeah, excited to share a bit about what we've been working on. Maybe I will. Let's see. Maybe I'll share my screen. I don't have a super slick presentation like the clients team had, but I do have this update that we posted yesterday. So maybe we'll kind of drive from there. Let's see. So I think just like high level news, we're still not on mainnet yet with Drips v2, but we're getting super close. We have actually been sort of feature complete for quite a few weeks now, and there's nothing really new planned. We've been focused on auditing the contracts, which is going really well. We actually should have a report from one of our auditors that we can probably share soon. They've concluded like the sort of first full round, and I think I can share that no major concerns were found. So that was super exciting. Obviously, we had done a bunch of work before over the summer too. But yeah, let's see. So on the smart contracts, we're mainly focused on security right now. We're also working with the Certora team to create formal verification rules. They've done a bunch of this work in the past, so we're really building on work we have before. But that's really kind of the last thing for the smart contracts is the security, and I think we're pretty close. So hopefully mainnet release is actually coming really soon for Drips v2, which is exciting. On the SDK and Subgraph, Yanis has been doing just a ton of incredible work on the SDK to add in some of these new really powerful features, that we kind of sprinted to get in to v2, things like squeezing drips, NFT sub accounts, immutable splits. So kind of pushing these all the way through to the JS SDK so that they'll be available to developers, hopefully at least in an initial form when we hit mainnet. So awesome work from him to get that stuff in, because some of these are pretty complicated features to implement. So the web app is also moving forward really fast. Jason and Everett have been doing an incredible job of like pushing this forward really quickly. We finished the wireframes. I think we shared those last month a little bit, but now we're on to actual development of the app. So and it's moving pretty fast. So I would say maybe even could do a demo sometime soon. We'll be sharing more about this potentially by next month. We'll be ready to demo a first version of the app. Not to like commit us to anything, but without talking to everybody. But it's just moving really fast, so it's exciting to see. And on the funding side, lots of exciting stuff happening as well. After working a bit with LA and some of the other contributors who work on the Radicle.xyz app or app.radicle.xyz, we've kind of settled on our first couple of experiences. And so these are, again, to remind everybody, these are Radicle funding is really about offering experiences to FOSS developers to help them crowdsource funds from their supporters or even more broadly to like help create new funding mechanisms for FOSS developers generally looking to raise funds or to get funded. And so after exploring a bunch of different options so we're in a very MVP type stage with this. We're trying out these different experiences and sort of seeing what works. We did some of this in Drips v1 for everybody for those who followed along with Drips v1. But the first two experiences that we're going to target with Radicle funding are having a Fund Me button in app.radicle.xyz for any project that is building on the Radicle code collab stack. So this will be optional, but it will allow any user or any Radicle project to basically just turn on a little button that says Fund Me, and then that will connect through to Drips. Or that will be powered by Drips, and allow them to just directly receive crowdfunded support in the form of ERC20 tokens, including like stable coins like DAI. So this is a kind of a pretty simple thing to put together relatively, but I think it could immediately give just a really nice default option for folks building on the Radicle code collab stack to be able to fundraise for their FOSS project. The second experience will be kind of similar to some of the split stuff we had in Drips v1, but it will be a split to dependencies workflow, also in the app.radicle.xyz app. And it'll allow projects building on Radicle to again optionally share some percentage of any of the funds that are raised by them to projects that they depend on, or just other contributors or researchers that they depend on. But we're going to be doing, and I guess the last thing to say here is that Kai has started working with the funding team and is going to be working to help us kind of streamline these or improve these two different experiences even more by talking directly with FOSS projects looking to raise funds, and as well as their supporters, and kind of try to figure out what are the detailed features that will really make these most powerful. And these could be things like benefits that projects could offer to supporters. We explored this a little bit in Drips v1 with things like gated Discord and snapshot voting, and then over on the kind of split to dependencies side, these are things like how many projects would a project want to, how many dependency projects would a project want to share to? How many contributors would they want to share to in this way? And then also kind of like what types of automation tools might be helpful in terms of automatically trying to populate some of these dependency shares through things like package managers that people might be using in their projects. So really excited to have Kai helping out with this. I think getting closer to our early adopter users is just gonna be incredibly exciting to help us be able to kind of hone in on creating the best versions of these initial experiences. But basically, like, lots of stuff happening there, and we'll be sharing more soon. Let's see. I hope I'm not like too much overtime, but let's keep going quickly. Also, lots of stuff happening with partnerships and ecosystem. We're continuing to talk with Giveth, which is super exciting, about them integrating Drips into their fundraising workflows. And then a ton of great stuff happened at DevCon. We had kind of a small part of the team there because it's sort of was a far journey for many people. But for those of us that were there, we made lots of great connections and had a ton of fun. I was actually able to give a talk at the Funding the Commons stage at Shelling Point, which was incredible. Super grateful for everyone who's able to make it. And hopefully that talk will be shared online. In the meantime, if you're interested, there's a link for slides. But also, thanks to NAS, we were able to connect with the Ceramic team. We connected with some people from Gitcoin Passport, and continue to explore how we might build on those projects and integrate with them to add some powerful features, especially related to social identity and trust in Drips. And then finally, we were able to connect with some really, really interesting projects in the DeSci space, specifically crowdfunded Cures and Molecule. And they have, I think I'm probably like over time, but they have just some really interesting public goods funding use cases that are really kind of similar to the FOSS funding use cases that we're focused on. but in like the kind of decentralized science and sort of, public health and medicine as a public good space. So these are just like incredibly exciting projects and really aligned. And so I think there's, we're exploring initial collaborations with them, and they're already looking at building on drips. So probably a lot more interesting news to come there in the future. So yeah, lots of stuff happening, especially now that we're this much bigger team with drips plus funding together. But it's all super exciting, and yeah, hopefully V2 launch of drips soon. So yeah, any questions? Happy to answer any questions or thoughts. Let's see. Maybe I'll stop sharing my screen and look at comments.
Doesn't seem like there's any immediate questions for the funding team. Phyllis, I see your question in the chat. I think we can continue discussing it in the chat in essence of time, and then if we have time at the end, we can open the floor a little bit more. But any last comments or questions for funding?
Okay, cool. Well, in that case, I'll pass it back to you, Abby.
Awesome.
Thanks,
Andrew. Great work. Super excited to watch your talk. So hopefully the recordings will come up soon. Cool. I'll pass it off to Growth now. Hey, Andrew.
Hey, could someone present by chance? Because I'm on an iPad Pro since my laptop died last week, and it's $1,000 to get it fixed in Mexico. So I'll have a new one next week. And in the meantime, yeah, it's a little difficult to present, but I'll walk through the update. But if someone could just share their screen so people can follow along. Otherwise, I can try to figure it out, but I don't think it's an option. Beautiful, thank you. Okay, so this month's growth update is broken down into 3 sections: partnerships, education, and marketing. And to go along with this in the format that it's posted, I'll start with the partnerships section, but specifically, as Nas posted here, a lot of the work we've been doing on growth is on the partnership side to try to align our vision and mission with work being done across the DAO. Specifically, trying to figure out more initiatives internally and externally to push the Radicle mission and vision. So on the partnerships front, there's a lot in the works. Specifically, this Giveth and Radicle partnership post that Luke's been working on. I believe we're expecting this co-marketing post to be shared in the next couple of weeks. And then Luke and Harry have put together a co-marketing pipeline. So there will be an announcement and then sort of like I believe it's an 8 or a 9 week plan to share co-created content related to the partnership. So there'll be a series of blog posts and Twitter Spaces. Luke had asked for my feedback on that, but I honestly thought it was just super strong. I think if we can continue to do these sort of initiatives where we have a partnership and then we have buy-in from both sides to create content and then push that content out for an extended period, it'll help us, like I mentioned, spread the word of Radicle. The next partnerships thing is with the Graph Foundation. So Luke met with the Graphs Foundation and is trying to also do a co-marketing and partnership initiative like the Giveth one. So if you click into the Giveth, you don't have to do this now, but if people want to click into the Giveth Radicle co-marketing pipeline, you can get a general sense for how the partnerships team is thinking about working with other DAOs and other orgs to share any work we do together. I think Luke's pretty receptive to feedback. If anyone wants to chime in there, like on messaging, I know some people had written in about some comments on his on the announcement post. On the drips pipeline, we're building a pipeline of contacts to reach out to, specifically Filecoin and Protocol Labs. I guess, maybe Andrew, this is some of the stuff Andrew was talking about, but similarly want to do more of these co-marketing pipelines. And then the last thing is a workshop. So to run a value prop and messaging workshop with the Drips team. So again, Luke has been sharing a lot of this work, and you can generally follow along with his thinking in the duckweed notion. On the education side, some really exciting updates here. Specifically that the Radicle Institute is going to have a new website. So that will be all of the fellowship and the cohort work and actually DevRel as well will fall into this Radicle Institute. So any sort of educational content. Matt and Naz are doing research on the technical side of things. That's ongoing. DevRel, there's been quite a bit going on. I'm not as plugged in here, but basically Cami and Naz are trying to rethink the DevRel approach. Some of the output was high, but the quality wasn't feeling like it was up to snuff. So the focus has been pulled back to focus on higher quality pieces rather than like just sheer volume of output. Creative tech bounties. There's going to be a small grants program for creative technologists to do write-ups for the Institute and to share their work. So just like a mini grants program related to Institute's mission. Related to Institute's mission, this is one of those next things that I'm also going to be helping on. So just clearly defining what goes into Institute. How do we think about things that are a part of Institute as opposed to like the core DAO? There are education partnerships as well. So continuing on the partnerships work that Naz is doing, but doing that specifically related to the Institute. Fellowship and cohort program. Ruth, Maddie, and Naz have shared some good strategy stuff, drafts over the last few weeks. I've been sharing those pretty regularly, but I think the next couple of weeks are going to be pretty important for those in that there will be some more finalized plans. But yeah, like this update says, significant progress has been made after collecting feedback from most of the team. The focus is going to be on the fellowship, which is to launch in the beginning of the year with a group of developers that are going to build a project within the Institute, and they'll have a grants component as well. On the marketing side, so most excitingly, Maddie has been working on a podcast. 5 episodes are already recorded. We announced it on Twitter this week. So if everyone wants to share and retweet that, that'd be great. But also maybe if you're selective about your retweets, save it for the first episode, which should be coming out any day now. And then we'll continue to have that going on a rolling basis. I shared a draft of a marketing checklist for teams to leverage for marketing support. So in other words, when something is announced, if we can get it into this calendar, then we can coordinate marketing efforts around those specific initiatives. I think this has been a little unclear since I joined about how to use marketing and how it, like, sometimes people want to, sometimes they don't know that they can. So the idea is if we can have a little bit more of a centralized hub of updates, I think we can more regularly push that out. But I think on top of this, I'm going to take these updates and put them into the ones that are applicable, put them into the calendar just to show everyone kind of how that can work. Because I think obviously on this call, we get a lot of really good updates about what's going on, but unless you're on this call or watch the recording, which I don't think should be the expectation, that that's how people stay up to date. outside of the core contributors and people who are interested in joining one-off calls. So I'll put these updates where applicable. Most of the growth is already in there, but for the other teams into that calendar, just so everyone can see how to leverage that. And then the last thing is the messaging kit. So first draft was shared about a month ago. I got good feedback across the board. Abby sort of reworked it, and then I implemented her feedback along with some others and shared that draft again this week. So it's closer to a final form. The only comments I've gotten so far is it feels closer, but maybe not all the way there yet. So if everyone wants to have a look at that, I think that'd be helpful, because I think we've seen in a lot of the various posts, people mention the Radicle mission a lot, but every time it's mentioned differently, which is good and bad. I would say it's good because you can see that we're trying to do a lot here, but it's not as consistent, and the mission and the vision are not as clear. And I think we should be pumping the same message. And like the things we're building towards, even though the stated mission is slightly different, the direction we're moving definitely feels cohesive. But the idea is that we can align on some messaging, so people don't have to think it up as well every time when they go to share something. Like, what is it again that we say our mission is? Like, you can just know that these are the canned language we use, and it will help people view and evaluate their work as well. That's it on the growth side. But yeah, I think that the main things here, like, there's a lot going on in the partnerships side. Education is going to become this massive component at the start of next year, and marketing wants to support you. So please don't be afraid to reach out to us and ask how. I think a lot of the work we've been doing, I've been asking for feedback, but in reality, we want you guys to be asking us how we can help you get the word out about whatever you're working on. Are there any specific questions? I have not been in the chat, so. Doesn't look like it.
I might have some after I dive into all of this stuff that just does a heavy update. Thank you so much for sharing. I'll definitely be sure to read through and take a look at the docs and chime in there. But anybody else want to ask a question on call? Nope. Okay, cool. Andrew, thank you so much for the update. Really appreciate it. So cool to see all the initiatives going. Lots of really exciting stuff happening in the ecosystem. So we'll keep it moving along. The last two, so we'll do a community and governance update quickly, and then I'll pass it off to Boredom to give an update on grants season 2. So I'm going to try to share my screen. Can everyone see my screen? I'm assuming you can. Yeah? I need a verbal if people can see this.
Yes.
Yeah.
Yes, we can.
Thank you. Okay, cool. So I'll keep this update relatively short. We've had a big conference month. So as Andrew mentioned, a bunch of us were in Bogota supporting DevCon and Shelling Point. For those who don't know, DevCon is like the Ethereum Foundation's conference. And so it's kind of like, one of the biggest Ethereum events of the year, and it hasn't happened since DevCon Osaka. So it was a big reunion for a lot of people. And I was pleasantly surprised with how productive and how exciting the event was. And Bogota is definitely like a very special place. So Radicle gave a bunch of talks. So me and Andrew spoke at Shelling Point on the Funding the Common stage and main stage. So we'll be sure to post those recordings when we have them. And I spoke at 2 panels at DevCon with some folks. The recordings are there. And Shelby and I facilitated this governance design jam workshop hosted by MakerDAO, which was a really awesome session, but really great vibes all around. And there was like a lot of really fun threads that we're picking up now post-conference. Of course, we're dealing with health. Like for all the work that we did, we paid for it with our immune systems being completely compromised now. But we're on the road to recovery, and there aren't any big conferences, I think, lined up, at least for myself, in the next 2 months. So that'll be good to just be sitting down and work. In terms of progress that we've made on different initiatives. So the first is that I'm sure everybody has seen, but the core dev org working group is currently facilitating like DAO planning sessions with each core team. So I think we've done about half of them, and we're looking to schedule with growth and with clients over the next week as well. So look out for that. But the context here, and I'm going to just write this in an overview email this week, is that we're just basically hosting more facilitated sessions to help everybody kind of contextualize the transition, what this means for them, and also help us surface any needs that can better inform the design of the core development org. And so those have been going really well and are super helpful for our process. So excited to finish those up over the next 2 weeks. The next big update is that we are planning a contributor offsite. We are I think like 95% sure doing the December 4th to 7 time slot, since there is no major issues with this offsite. This date, we are still finalizing location, but should know by the end of the week. We're currently exploring the Canary Islands as the first option by popular demand, and it's also the warmest place this year. But we're just trying to look to see how feasible it will be. So I just want everybody to note that this is the tentative plan, and of course we're going to be confirming, but for everybody to start thinking about what they need to make that happen. We'd love to try to get as many contributors there as possible this time. And so we're going to need more final headcounts in the coming weeks. So start thinking about if you're going to be able to make it, and keep an eye on core for the destination decision by the end of the week. Other moves is that we began hiring for a head of marketing, which I think is really exciting, between the community team, between the council, between the growth team. There's and with Andrew's work, there's a desire to kind of like keep things moving forward on that front. So we've been chatting with a couple people. It might have a couple leads and updates to share with that over the next coming weeks. And just a call out that we're also kind of starting to think about next community hires. I think it's time to take our community channels and community spaces into the next phase. And so we're definitely going to be looking out for people who can kind of help support the Radicle community as well. So we'll provide more there. And then we have our typical governance updates. So the big one, which I think we'll focus on, I'll pass it off to Boredom after, is the continuation of the Radicle Grants Program. So the formal review for this passed. And the proposal, continues the existing grants program with some amendments, including like improving communication to grantees, optimistic funding, and some more KPIs. So very excited that Boredom's going to be able to start giving out grants again and building out the grants program there. Excited to hear his updates. So I'll make these updates, Boredom, and then I'll pass it off to you. And then the next update is regarding like the phase 0 transition to the DAO. So this proposal has been passed, but the update here is that the distribution of RAD to contributors is still planned for the end of October, early November. You'll probably be hearing from Angie or I within the next week or two regarding this. So keep an eye out, but just wanted everybody to know that there's progress being made there. In terms of other forum activities, so we definitely have some interesting discussions that are happening around like treasury management, and it's something that Shelby and I kind of set more intention to prioritizing over the next couple months. And so we're actually probably going to be kind of spawning this treasury management working group in an effort to provide more context and apply more strategy to the incoming proposals of people who want to help the Radicle ecosystem kind of manage its treasury effectively. So if that piques your interest, like just keep an eye out, because Shelby and I will be doing some more public facing working group stuff in that realm. In terms of temperature checks, we have the OtterSpace temperature check. The OtterSpace team is super into supporting the Radicle ecosystem with their badge protocol, and they're actually hosting like open working calls with us bi-weekly to answer questions, talk about potential implementations. And so you can check out and get invited to those calls I think either in the OtterSpace chat or in the org design chat. And this is like a really great way to kind of keep up to date with what they're trying to build. Obviously, more will come as things kind of formalize within the, not formalize, but kind of just like evolve in the collaboration. And I know that Boredom is looking into doing some fun stuff with Grants DAO. So yep, keep an eye out there. And then there is this Balancer Public Goods Pool, which is like a fun mission-aligned proposal as well, pairing well with the Public Goods Alliance that we just formed with Kitcoin, which we have yet to update, but we're announced to the community, but we're working on it. So in terms of transition work, nothing incredibly new. I just want everybody to know that the core development org working group has had its like first few weekly meetings, and again, we're kind of like heads down focusing on these like DAO planning sessions to make sure that we're supporting core teams in the best possible way. But there's a lot of really cool work that's happening there, and if you're getting interested in getting involved, just please respond to this post. Again, the group is like opt-in and open to anybody who would like to join. We do have like our own channel for just like scoping the conversation specifically to the working group's work, but it's completely, open for anybody to join. If you're interested, just respond to the post and we'll make sure you're added. And obviously anything that comes out of that group will be presented to the core teams themselves. And then we, Andrew mentioned it, but we're kind of like trying to move this messaging kit work forward. And it also pairs with some of the next step of like our funding core teams principles and criteria post, and that this like purpose, mission, vision is something that we also want to be able to pull a first draft of from this messaging kit work that we're working on together. So hopefully we'll be able to find some convergence on that work. Shelby has this updates and next steps for the DAO tooling work stream, and she's been working really hard experimenting with some new tools that we can be introducing to our ecosystem, such as like onboarding tools and different things here. So there's going to be some fun, maybe new tools to play around with in the coming weeks, but Shelby will be keeping us all updated on the forum. I already gave the distribution of ownership workstream update, which is basically the phase 0, and the distribution of influence workstream. The work there is kind of about exploring the collaboration with OtterSpace and learning there. So as I said, we're still hiring for a comms manager, and I think now we're trying to transition into what community development roles we want to introduce to the project. I think new community energy would be great. So please share through your networks. And if you have people who come through that you love and are awesome, just feel free to let me know. So I'll end there. Sorry, that was a little bit longer than expected. And maybe I'll pass it off to Boredom instead of fielding questions immediately. And people can ask me questions in the chat about community and governance, and Boredom can take the floor and talk about grants, since we also might have some Q&A for the grants program. Hope that sounds good to everybody. If it does, Boredom, I'll pass it off to you.
Okay. Can you hear me?
Yep.
Okay, great. Are you able to see my screen?
Not yet.
Okay. For some reason, when I share it, it goes through the whole menu, but it doesn't end up sharing. So I'll skip that for now.
You want me to share for you?
Oh, that'd be great. Yeah. I'm basically just going to go to the community post and run through it with a summary of what we approved the last week. Cool. Yeah. So as Abby alluded to, we got the second season of grants funded in the last 2 weeks. So the way that I've organized this is one of the big updates to the like all seasons going forward is we took some of the learnings that we had and actually tried to put some like hard and very explicit goals and sort of things that we're keeping track of for each 4-month season. And there's basically 3 main topics. And so basically every time I do one of these updates, I'm just going to kind of go through what goals we've been running after over the last month. And so we're just like a week in, but basically I'll start from the top. So one of the main things that we're working on is DAO partnerships. So one is building out third-party tooling and integration. So Yorgos, who's on the call, recently put in a milestone for IDE plugin, so user research for visual code. So the thing to call it here, and why I put it at the top, is this basically is an integration with the CLI. So it's very closely coupled with some of the core product that the core team is building. And so I think that Yorgos is, whenever he's doing work on user research or building the actual plugins, if you happen to use one of the IDEs, so whether it's JetBrains or Visual Code, it would be great if you can try to take a look at the work they're doing just as a user, but then also as a developer of the things that he himself is and his team are building out on top of what you're building. So hopefully, if you are using those IDEs, we could maybe try to build some kind of feedback loop against both of the groups working. So they just put in their milestone for the user research Visual Code. Another thing was we started talking to Sam Williams. He's founder of Airweave and some other devs who were interested in storing binaries. I talked to a few of you on Discord. I think this could go one of either like 3 ways. Like we might just retroactively fund some hacky work that someone did as a proof of concept, say thanks for showing us how to save binaries. That would be kind of like the lowest level. We might partner with someone like Airweave or Filecoin to figure out how to co-fund saving binaries. And then I think maybe the best outcome of this would just be maybe getting a developer to actually contribute to some of the ideas that that Cloudhead and FinTech mentioned on Discord about actually having this as part of the core. So I don't think we have a settled solution there, but it could go one of 3 ways there. And then the next one is recruiting funnels. Been chatting with Ruth and Maddie about the cohort program. So we just built out some to-dos, like building out like a common framework for onboarding people to grants through that program. It's kind of like as a funnel, like a recruiting funnel for grants. And then badges, Abby alluded to this. We just met with them today. We're just going to start running with actually distributing badges to committee members and grantees. And then once we're done with that, kind of go from there on how we might want to use it in our governance processes around voting, or maybe even getting input from grantees themselves via the badges. The next thing is around dripping to dependencies. So we prepared a list of grants dependencies, and we're going to just sort of continually work over the next 4 months on getting these people onboarded so that we can send them free money, and then kind of work with marketing on building a story around that. Then around dog fooding, this is kind of the last section at the bottom. Most of this is kind of has a big dependency on Drips v2 and work streams, the updates that are coming soon. So not too much to update here. And I kind of made the decision not to try to force it into V1, which already exists, just because I don't want to create technical debt and overhead that's going to change soon anyway. So not much to update there. That's it. That's it for me. Any questions?
Awesome work, Boredom. It's really exciting to see grants starting to grow and evolve, and I'm super excited for this next season for sure. So really excited to see it. Any other questions, comments, celebratory praise? No.
Can I add something about the ID plugins?
Yes,
For
go for it.
Yeah, so thanks for the shout out. We're actually almost ready with the next version for the JetBrains IDE plugin. So if you are working on JetBrains IDEs, IntelliJ, PHP Storm, or all the suite, please try it out and give us some feedback, and ping me on Discord so I can find out what's not working and what you'd like improved, and any feedback is welcome.
Awesome. Okay, cool. Well, I think that we covered it all. Unless there's anybody else who would like to bring anything to the floor, give an update, speak now, or forever hold your peace. And if there isn't anything that comes to mind, then I think I'll thank everybody for participating in this month's community call. As always, it's so great to see everything that's happening in the ecosystem. So appreciate the time from everybody. And we'll see each other next month. Yes, applause all around. Thanks, everybody.